Hello and welcome everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from. My name is Alex Maza. I am the Sustainability and Innovation Lead at the Cardano Foundation. And today we're going to be looking at the first of two Cardano roundtables happening during Catalyst Fund 14, where we'll be exploring community expertise in action and exploring really the Catalyst representatives pilot that we're running together with various members of our fantastic community. Now, before we get into each one of our bits of work and introducing the panel that we have here today, I'll be giving a little bit of context as to what this representatives pilot is and why it is so valuable to Cardano's distributed decision-making, not only in Catalyst, but also in the broader governance space that we've kicked off in 2025 as an ecosystem. So first up, Catalyst representatives are going to become a technical role that will be enabled by a feature on the Catalyst roadmap. This is something similar to what you would know as a delegate representative with on-chain governance. So this is essentially a feature that will differentiate a voter on Catalyst, so somebody that uses their ADA to vote on proposals, versus a representative, which is somebody that would receive stake voting power from ADA holders within Catalyst and could vote on a variety of different proposals on behalf of certain voters. And the Catalyst team at Rare Revo ran a testing of the UI UX, and you can find that on their X as well as their forum posts and see what that would look like. But essentially what that inspired for many of us is that there would be different sets of expertise, whether they know DeFi, sustainability, open source development, etc., that would go on and advise the different voters on Cardano. And so given this, we thought, why not start building the social layer for expert decision-making on Cardano while the technical layer is being figured out by the Catalyst team for subsequent funds? And so what we'll do today is try to surface some of the many experts within the Cardano ecosystem in different verticals and share a little bit more about what their approach to proposal review selection will be. And so the way that our session will run today is first a quick showcase, an introduction from our different experts here on the call. They'll share some lightning presentations about what framework, what outputs, and what reasoning they have for the different selections that they may look forward to in this Catalyst Fund 14. And to be very clear, these are recommendations by experts alongside many others that are just there to be considered by community members and by voters. And these are by no means endorsements by any of the entities represented, including the Cardano Foundation. And I want to be very, very clear on this. This is about empowering expertise and making it easier for voters to access that expert information. So after they share a few lightning talks about their approaches, we'll try to have a bit of a moderated discussion around the challenges that they faced while doing so and some of the opportunities that they see in this Catalyst Fund and further Catalyst funds. And maybe if we have the time, and I hope we do, we'll take a look at some of how these things might translate to DRep best practices in our current governance year, as well as the one that we're going to be facing ahead. And so with this, I want to make sure that you understand that you can find all of this information on the Cardano Forum by using the catalyst-rep-pilot tag to find all of these different bits of information. And then now, without further ado, I would like to introduce our different panelists. So I'll just go from my left to right very quickly, and I hope I can do justice to this. So we have Yoram with Alks Connect, who's been a Cardano community member trying to work on developing enterprise adoption, specifically within the impact and sustainability vertical. and that's what he's taking a look at today. We have Mathieu, who's representing the open source team at the Cardano Foundation. And again, to be clear, every Cardano Foundation employee here has taken this mantle as a community member first. And this goes to say with the same rest of the speakers. So Mathieu and the open source team have been looking at the open source category. We have James from USDM, also representing the Intersect Product Committee, who've been hard at work developing the first iteration of Cardano Vision 2030 to drive that adoption. We have Ahmed from Imergo Labs, the CEO, who's looking at, whose team has been looking at the Catalyst proposals from a Web 2 to Web 3 angle. We have Rodrigo, who is joining us as a community member from Brazil and former ambassador, really passionate about distributed decision-making and improving that for Cardano. And last but not least, we have Nico Cerny, the governance lead at the Cardano Foundation, who's taken a very deep dive into proposals related to governance more broadly on Cardano. So with this, we'll go again in a similar order where, I'd like to ask you to share in a very brief, maybe pitch, not more than 5 minutes. What is the overall approach that you took in terms of assessing proposals from a framework perspective? What kinds of outputs did you come into? And what kind of reasoning did you use within these frameworks to kind of support some of the proposals that you chose to recommend? And Yoram, I'll give you the floor first. You've got 5 minutes.
Good. Thank you, Alex, and thank you for the roundtable and the initiative. Great to be here with all of these great people in the community. So in the last few years, I'm very active on trying to onboard enterprises to Cardano. So that's what I do all day. I was looking on the different proposals, but
I can attest to that, Yoram.
Trying
to onboard all day.
Yeah, and there is challenges there, but I think we are doing great, and I'm very optimistic. I think where we are today. So again, bravo for this initiative. And when I started to review the proposal, I remember a few things, and so I kind of moved to a different approach, Alex. If I introduce that, and I'm the first one, I'm kind of putting some different approach here in the sense that I think that when the proposal gets already to Project Catalyst, it's already a little bit late, I would say, in the sense that there are so many proposals, and there is a process when you onboard, especially when you onboard enterprises and not the companies that are already on Cardano. There is a long process that you do with them, right? Some of them take 6 months, 9 months to speak with and convince them to apply, and until you actually help them and support them to apply. And all of that process you don't actually see, right? When someone actually apply eventually, and all the efforts behind that. And again, with Ahmed, there's a lot of collaboration with Imergo Labs and many other teams in the ecosystem, USDM, and really all of the teams trying to do that. But there's a long process in the back. So that's one. And second, I mean, when I started to evaluate, I mean, what I important to evaluate is obviously the collaboration with the ecosystem partners. The teams, I mean, every VC, right? When we speak about investment, so the first thing we see is looking at is the team, what's the quality of the team. So that's definitely there. If it's an open source, obviously the impact on chain that it's going to bring, that's a key element. Definitely, if we look on the partner proposal, right, when the funding is higher. So this is all things that I took into account. And I started to evaluate based on that the different proposal and kind of have a rating from 1 to 5, and be a little bit tougher with the proposals that are more asking for more funding, right? And especially the new ones that are coming in and asking for more funding. And by the way, when I work with new proposal normally and new projects coming on board, I normally recommend them to put very low budget initially, so the community can start knowing them and get interaction with the community. And this way, next fund potentially ask for further funding. But my challenge was here is that I support a lot of proposals. So if I actually make my list and recommend, and you can see it in my forum, the process, I felt that there could be a bias, which was because this fund I onboard at least 40 plus proposals, at least over 10 proposals in the partner category, and all of them are connected to enterprises adoption. So if I'm going to put them in other proposals, or what do I do with other people that I know very well, and I know them as a team member already for so long, so obviously I will recommend them as well, but that will kind of make a big bias towards to the teams that I don't know yet well, right? So that's kind of something that a little bit stopped me in the way of the process, and said to me, okay, let's actually focus at this fund at least on the proposal that I onboarded. I explain why I onboarded. I still share all the reasoning, but it's very clear that it's proposal that I work with. I can vote for them. I know that the teams are there's some proposal that I helped and they choose not to listen and they ask for a lot of funding. So I say, okay, I'm not going to present this one in this fund, and I'm not going to show them. I really try to show team and present teams that I actually mentored or worked with in the last 6 months or so, and kind of watch for them. And I know that they're going to deliver, and I can be also part of the accountability as a mentor, even though I'm not part of the proposal. If everyone have a question and so on, they can always come to me and I can explain or watch for them or see what's the issues or be involved there. So that's kind of the approach that I took. Also, evaluating all the proposals, I felt another thing that I found challenging is, I use the AI for the analysis. Like I put different categories like collaboration, teams, impact, all of that. And then you get a shorter list with AI based on 1 to 5. But it's also not fair, right? Again, the team is very important, and AI cannot evaluate the team just like that, right, in the proposal. Awesome. And to evaluate all the proposal good, I felt it required a lot of time. Yeah, so that's kind of a summary from my side.
Thanks, Jerome. That's a super helpful way to kick this off. So essentially, the journey that happens between a proposal going live and everything that precedes it, the key aspect of knowing the team, and of course, that's not an easy bit of information to have unless you have certain levels of social proof or some digital proof or otherwise. And then maybe we can come to the mentorship aspect a little bit later, because that was a very key part of what you posted up on the forum. Next up, we have Mathieu with the open source team at the Cardano Foundation, otherwise known as the Survey Corps. And they were actually the first group to post a recommendation list and their approach, which was incredibly methodical, on the Cardano Forum. So Mathieu, tell us a little bit more about this framework, how it came about, why you chose this specific approach, and what you got out of this. And I think it could be really interesting to also touch on the fact that you highlighted certain proposals relevant to Catalyst as open source innovation, while referring some of the other proposals to other existing funding streams that are now available on Cardano now that we have on-chain governance.
Yes. Hi, Alex. There are indeed a lot of things involved in Catalyst and in our reviews. And as Yoram said, it's something that took a lot of time. First, so we are a software engineering team specialized on things related to open source, small projects targeted to things that are not handled by the rest of the CF. And we have a little bit of flexibility. So this year, we said that it would be a good idea to spend a week, stop everything we were doing and spend a full week for the team, which is 4 people, to evaluate a category where we are experts, which is the open source developer category, so that we can provide some feedback to everyone who can vote, but maybe not necessarily has a lot of technical insights about that subject. So that was the main motivation. Like, can we bring our expertise to the public so that it could help people without the expertise to differentiate things that make sense and things that, according to us, does not make sense or less than other positions. So that was the main idea. And then for the execution, we split our team in two. So two of us did pre-filtering and suggestions, and two others had an opposite role of challenging the suggestions that the two others did. We did that in 3 rounds. The first round was a scheme of the proposals in the category, because there were over 300 proposals in the category. So we did a first scheme to basically select a subset of the category. So we ended up with 90 proposals, I think, after that first selection, that were the 90 that were, according to us, the best fit to the category. After we did that, we did a second round related to, so we did that with a voting scheme with different criteria that were important, in our opinion, for Catalyst, and that were important also for the CF. So these criteria, we listed them in the post that Matthias did on the Cardano Forum. These are the following. So first, strategic fit, basically how it aligns with the category. Does it support mature and mainnet deployed projects? Does it directly support some of the pillars that we have at the CF, like technology, governance, adoption? Does it align with some of the values of the CF, and is the requested budget reasonable and justified? So this is a strategic fit. Then there is a feasibility. So how relevant is the problem statement first, and how effective is the solution to the problem statement? Then is the solution maintained? Does it scale? What are the goals and the KPIs? Are they presented clearly? Is there evidence of skills in the team? And how have they performed previously? Have they already received grants? Did they deliver successfully, etc.? And finally, there is impact, which is the third part of our rating system, which is focused on novelty. So is it novel? Is there a clear path to adoption? Is it likely to generate transactions on chain? Is it likely to attract new developers? And does it significantly reduce developers' time and efforts to bring the whole community into a better situation, and not just the project? So these are the first pillar. So we gathered those information. We got some kind of ratings. This way, we selected a subset of those projects based on those ratings, and then the final step was a selection based on a comparison mechanism. We had rounds of 3 proposals, and we selected which one we prefer between the 3, so that we can have a final ranking for the end. This is also explained in details in the post that explain the methodology. And at each step of those 3 steps, the contrarians, which are the 2 other people in the team that challenged our decision, had feedback on our decisions and could get project back into the list, or remove other projects that we considered not evaluated high enough. So yeah, I think that's and in the end, like you said, Alex, we also made a suggestion for the open source committee at Intersect, because some of the projects are really teams that have been building, that we are happy to have in Cardano, teams that build tools that are used by all the dApps, that are used by many products, but that doesn't really fit the idea of innovation that is behind Catalyst. So sometimes it's hard to justify just funding 1 year of development with maintenance, something like that, on a Catalyst project. So we highlighted some of those, and we are suggesting that they submit, I don't know exactly how it works, but in the open source committee, they're going to have a section dedicated to this kind of back funding and funding of ongoing maintenance for those kind of projects. So yeah, that's the overall of everything.
Thanks, Mathieu. And on top of this, I think Catalyst has also been funded to do like a retroactive pilot using their stack. And I think it's really interesting that we have all of these different, more specialized pots of funding on Cardano now that we have on-chain governance. It'll be great to tap into that and what BuilderDAO, for example, also brings into the fold. But before we go to James, maybe on this, Rodrigo, you're passionate about distributed decision-making overall, whether this is on Catalyst, whether this is in Voltaire. I remember going through a few previously funded category challenges on Catalyst in I think Fund 6 or 7, and you were responsible for one looking at this. Can you tell us a little bit more about your approach? Because this seems to be something that is looking particularly at funding decisions, which I believe is somewhat different to what Nico is looking at when as it relates to kind of a broader meta governance focus. So I want to go narrow first and on funding decisions, because we've spoken about, what is the difference between Catalyst maybe and the open source committee and what they fund, what BuilderDAO funds. So yeah, tell us a little bit more about your approach, your framework, and maybe some of the key insights that you got out of them.
Okay, so I think to start this presentation, a good example that I could describe related to distributed decision making, the DIM that I choose to select for, is the fact that we are actually discussing methodologies and frameworks to improve decision making within the Cardano community. We are proposing different ways to establish methodologies, criteria, filtering methods, and all this type of work is related to the focus of the DIM I choose. The distributed decision making is related to the Cardano community capacity as a community effort to have access to tools and services that allows the community to have better insights, better data and information about how they can participate on governance and on Project Catalyst, how we can foster a better system of accountability and measurements of potential impact through KPIs, for example. So I'm going to describe the methodology I have used across this week. I decided to start with a pre-screening stage because Catalysts have more than 1,000 proposals, and the DIM I choose was spread across different categories. So I need to evaluate proposals in all of them. I have designed the AI prompt to assist me in this pre-screening process. In this process, I feed the content of each proposal in the prompt, and I managed to get insights of if the proposal was aligned with the decision-making category, if the proposal was borderline aligned, meaning that they could have some aspects related to decision-making improvements, but this isn't so clear because they also have another deliverables not related. And the last criteria would be proposals not aligned. So I have run this AI prompt through 600 proposals of the ecosystem challenge and managed to understand which tags were more relevant to the work I intend to develop. The tags most relevant were related to governance. In relation to tags, I would like to add that since Fund 14, Catalyst team have added the option of including tags for each proposal. So this can assist the community to understand what's the main theme behind a proposal. So in addition to use AI to increase my productivity and time in this process, I also have used a tags to monitor proposals related to governance, which was the main tag related to distributed decision making. And my preliminary list got about 120 proposals related to the DIM. I have excluded about 20 of these proposals because Catalyst team have made a process of moderation, and more than 300 proposals were excluded. The reasons are not so clear at the moment. They have published a spreadsheet documenting this process. However, considering that these proposals wouldn't be on the voting stage, I have excluded them from my pre-screening list, and my final list for a deep dive evaluation was about 90 proposals. With these proposals, I decided to select 3 main criteria to judge if I would endorse them or not. The 3 criteria would be the presence of KPIs with quantifiable targets. The second one would be team capability. And the last one would be a level of granularity in the budget. So regarding KPIs, I think we as a community should foster a better culture of establishing KPIs, quantifiable KPIs, as the new norm for Cardano community, because this type of practice is already being used in other grants funds in other blockchains. And unfortunately, on Cardano community, we don't have this culture so rooted. And I prioritized proposals that had established quantifiable KPIs. This was not a excludent criterion. However, if there was an absence of KPIs with quantifiable targets plus a poor budget breakdown with a low level of granularity, I would remove this proposal from my list. And regarding the team capabilities, I considered teams that have delivered similar proposals before, proposals related to decision-making improvements across Catalyst and Cardano governance as a whole, and maybe some tangent projects that could deliver improvements to decision-making. They don't necessarily were related to governance, but these teams showed that they have completed similar proposals in the past. So I have evaluated past performance, their track record delivering solutions on Cardano. And in addition, I have evaluated the presence of links and external sources to verification of their expertise, because in several proposals, there is just description of capability. Several members of the team have a strong background written, but they don't provide evidence to be that would allow us to check this information. So in this case, I would remove these proposals from my list. And finally, I have established a preference for teams with ongoing proposals on Catalyst and delivery on time without a huge amount of backlog and delays. Teams with half a year of delay in proposals, ongoing proposals on Catalyst, would not be endorsed in my framework.
Okay.
So my final list was about 25 proposals. Some of them were proposed by me. However, I have separated these proposals on an additional list declaring conflict of interest, but they have passed through the same methodology.
Got it. Thank you so much, Rodrigo, for this thorough deep dive into your approach. And for anyone that's joining us so far, we're having a variety of different community experts sharing their framework on how they analyze different specific verticals of Catalyst proposals. What we've seen so far is a mix of AI and manual work, but one thing that is key across different proposal reviewers so far is the team aspect. So before we dive into that particular challenge and kind of opening up Cardano and using our funding vehicles for that, I want to take a step away from distributed decision making, perhaps at a more meta level with governance with Nico, and then we'll move back into Web 2 to Web 3 adoption with Ahmed before wrapping up the first bit of our discussion with James, really looking at what does this mean from a go-to-market perspective, from an adoption perspective, and what does this mean for Cardano right now? Because adoption is a key factor. Of course, it's about enabling the technical infrastructure that can allow Cardano to thrive and provide application layer solutions, things that were covered by Mathieu earlier around decision making within a distributed network, something that Rodrigo touched on quite thoroughly and will be complemented by Nico, and then we'll move back into the adoption game as well. So Nico, from your perspective, how did you approach this? What and why did you come to a certain list that I believe you've just posted on the Cardano Forum? Thank you for doing that. For anybody that is interested on seeing our experts' recommendation lists and approach, go check out the Cardano Forum using the tag catalyst-rep-pilot. And I believe our team members will also share this in the chat for anybody viewing. So Nico, take it away.
Yeah, thank you so much, Alex. So what I really did is, first of all, focused on my area of expertise, if I can call it like that. And that is definitely Cardano governance. And that is the first step, right? I think it's very important as an assessor, as someone that takes on this huge workload of reviewing various categories, various proposals. You need to be aware of your own strengths and weaknesses. And it would make little sense for me to review, let's say, enterprise deals like Joram does, right? So I really focused on my area of expertise, which is Cardano governance. And then to, again, focus on the scope, I was very clear of I will only look at two specific categories in this funding round, in Fund 14, and that would be the Cardano use case. I forgot the name now. Sorry. Open ecosystem and use case concepts. And just to put a context and some numbers around it, the open ecosystem category had 583 proposals when I screened that, and the use case concepts one had 578. And that was before the filter that Rodrigo mentioned, where now I think around 300 proposals were filtered out. So what I did initially, and I'll take you through step by step. The first thing I did was screen all the proposals in these categories. What did I do? I read the title and I read the problem statement and the solution. When you open the website, you immediately see that. And based on that information, I made the initial categorization whether it fits within my scope of Cardano governance or governance adjacent. After I've done that, and that was a lot of work, right? 583 proposals in open ecosystems and 578 in use case concepts. So roughly speaking, probably that was 8 hours or more, plus minus. After that, after I did this initial assessment, I started actually applying my framework. So what did I do first when I looked at the proposals? I have basically 5 steps. First one I already explained is the selection and filtering that I did to look at whether the proposal aligns with my expertise, governance. Then the second filter was, does it align with the brief of the category, right? There are specific rules and requirements that proposals must fulfill. What I did then is, after I did my rough review of the proposals, I found that there were around 25 proposals in the Cardano use case, in the open ecosystem one, and 25 in the use case concept one. And only after I had this short list, I then applied my full assessment. So I read every single proposal myself and applied a specific rating criteria. So I looked at how is it aligned, and I always had you could get up to 5 points, either 1, 3, or 5 points, and I used that for the categories alignment. The second thing I looked at was clarity of plan, milestones, KPIs. Third one was solution effectiveness. Fourth, operational sustainability, and then of course team experience, and then adoption and relevance. So I did my assessment myself. After that, I also crafted a prompt. I think you call it prompt engineering, right, in these days. And then I had AI do a second assessment. And what I did is then compare my assessment with the one from the large language model. And if there was a different result where it differentiated by more than 2 points, I had to discover why and what's going on. So I did that. After that, I wrote my individual voting rationale and voting recommendation for the proposal. So that's how I approached this. And for me, I mean, of course, one of the most challenging things was, how do I assess the quality of my assessment framework? Because it's nice and good that I came up with it, and I took inspiration from a lot of what I saw also that Alex worked on and we in the foundation did in our reviews, right? But how will I be able to tell if it's successful or not? That can only happen once I know if the recommendations that I made in the future, or if the proposals get funded, if my assessment was correct or not, right? So this, I think for many of our assessment frameworks here, whether it's Mathieu, Yoram, or Rodrigo, I think it's key that we are also looking at the actual outcomes then of the funding round, and then maybe even track if the proposals get funded and we said yes, does that align with our assessment? And that's something I think oftentimes gets forgotten. So yeah, this is the TLDR of what I did.
Awesome. Thank you, Nico. And I think you bring in a really interesting component of this, which hasn't been discussed, which is the responsibility we bear as voters, whether it is us recommending things here as experts, whether it is large voters, as we've seen coming from, whether it is DeFi protocols, Genesis entities, etc., but also maybe smaller individual voters that do have that responsibility to nitpick and go and check out the milestone review process on an ongoing basis, which is transparent and available to people doing so. And again, it seems like we have a common thread here of team and AI use, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It's about augmenting our own capabilities with our limited capacity. So Ahmed, now moving on to you with the Web 2 to Web 3 space. I think what I found particularly interesting in Emergo Labs' approach is that you took a very agnostic view of proposals, not necessarily looking at those that you might be involved in or that you may have spoken to, but really looking at what can you contribute your expertise in transitioning Web 2 companies and use cases into Web 3, and how can you share that with the Cardano community? So I'm really curious about what your approach here has been, and why you decided to go this particular route, and what's come of it.
Sure. Thanks, Alex. First, thank you for bringing us all here together. This is a really great initiative, and I think it's been a long time coming. Transparency and piggybacking off Rodrigo said, distributed decision making is really critical to enterprise adoption. And I might get smack for saying this in public, but that's really what we're trying to, what we're missing with Cardano, and that's what could really catapult Cardano to the next frontier. So, and when there's a lack of transparency, it makes it more difficult to bring these big institutions in, because they come from a world where transparency is everything, and in the absence of that, things get lost in translation. So I hope you can see my screen. I'm very new to this thing, so yeah, awesome, thank you. I thought it'd be easier to talk through these things as I show it to you and run through it real quick. But basically, we eat, sleep, and breathe enterprise adoption, and we really believe it's the next frontier for Cardano, and it's everything we've been working on with all of our partners, Uram included, and many others. And the reason why we went for the sort of agnostic approach is I want to show the community like what value we can bring here to the table, right? It's we're not here to discuss the proposals we have endorsed or been involved with or supported, but we're more here as community members who want to support this transparency and decentralized voting notion. And to really give our 2 cents on how Catalyst proposals can be selected, right? To the best of our knowledge, of course, right? And we came up with a bunch of criteria, and we got together as a team internally and used 5 criteria. First, enterprise relevance. Through our experience, having been doing this for me personally, been doing this for the last 13 years now or so, and then also collectively, my team, we've really spoken to institutions across the board, and we've found deductions very similar to some of the work that Intersect did with their business interviews, but we took it an extra mile by looking at enterprise relevance, obviously, and how when we're talking to these enterprises and trying to bring them to Web3 vis-a-vis Cardano, it's really about making the conversation relevant for them. So that's a really, really critical component of this enterprise adoption. And I'd say it's the initial step to get you through the door, right? Which is a big feat to do in the first place with these big behemoth institutions. The second one is adoption pathway, having a clear pathway to adoption, meaning putting some things on chain, having some sort of onboarding, having a clear roadmap, having some developer experience and or support, looking at regulatory compliance, which is usually a really critical component of enterprise adoption. 9 times out of 10, it gets flagged regulatorily. So it's always really good to think about that far in advance. We also looked at delivery credibility. Is the team experienced enough? Do they have domain expertise? What's their track record, if any? Are the milestones realistic? Are the KPIs realistic? People usually like to shoot for the moon, and I'm all for it. But it's usually, in my experience, really good to be conservative with a lot of these estimates and projections. Value for money is another really critical thing, right? What the CAC is, for instance, what the milestone costs are, what the budget allocation is like. Because at the end of the day, if there's 2 proposals that are doing the same thing, but one's doing it at a fraction of the cost, all things considered equal, obviously, the community will vote for the one that's at a fraction of the cost. And then we put all that in a blender, and we essentially came up with a scoring scale from 0 to 5, 5 being amazing, 0 being lacking value. And this was the evaluation process we followed. So we pulled about six folks from our team, myself, 2 of our product experts, 2 of our tech experts, and analytics lead to review every proposal one by one. I talked to the team about this on Friday, so we had them all working through the weekend to get this done. It took quite a bit of time. I think there was like 500 plus proposals, but this was the essential way we did it. We quickly screened through. We divided everything and quickly screened through things. And then once we did that initial screen, we did a bit of a deep dive into the 4-pillar evaluation I shared on the previous evaluation lens slide. And then we did a reality check and peer review internally, and with some of the folks we were close with in the process. And then we put together this dashboard, which was essentially our the results of our selection and overview. So here you see a evaluation funnel. So total 500. We scanned down to 300. We deep dive 220. We reality check 50, and we shortlisted 31. These 31 are arranged here in the order you see before you. Again, this is no endorsement of any application or proposal. This is just what the team put together. And things were set up by total score out of 5, value for money, adoption pathway, delivery credibility, along with an ask and a link to the proposal. So this tool is really, really easy to use for folks to have a look and educate themselves. I think here I clicked on 1, that's why it's showing this. But if I maybe let's see, refresh it. Sorry, it's a bit slow. There we go. So you see them all lined up, stacked here. The first representation is the ask versus the value for money. Also the enterprise relevance versus the adoption pathway and everything. If you hover on it, you see like a score of everything. Adoption pathway and delivery credibility by proposal as well. So you have all the proposals here and the score of the adoption pathway vis-a-vis the delivery credibility. And finally, the total score per proposal. And then if you click on this one, for instance, and then it zeroes in on it and it shows you, the score, if you want to dive in, obviously. Yeah, so that's sort of the approach we took. We took a very sort of no frills approach. We went very scientific on it. And again, the team internally comes from sort of a very diverse background focused on enterprise adoption, specifically around RWA. So we looked at things from that lens, from all these different criteria I shared. I hope this is useful for folks to, not have to spend a lot of time sifting through things, but to be able to quickly analyze things and test it and tell us if it sucks or if it's good.
Thanks for sharing, Ahmed. And yeah, visually, I think this really does take the cake, and it's a fantastic thing that we have here. If I'm looking at everybody's submissions so far, they have all somewhat been a little bit different from the angle and maybe the expertise. But I think what I see clearly across all of the different review frameworks is a high level of robustness, dealing with a large amount of proposals and thinning it down to a more manageable amount that allows you as an expert to zero in and then, provide a recommendation list with associated reasons for that, either through the methodology itself or through a rationale. And what I'm particularly excited about myself is seeing, what might happen with comparability, perhaps with different experts. So as you know, the Cardano Foundation it's in and of itself as an institution, take a look exclusively at the product and partners track. And so it'll be fantastic to look at, how the review process and the way that it's been set up kind of jumps on the same things as what you have as Mogul Labs or as I'll Connect with Yoram, or maybe what the differences exist there. And that's for the voter to then take a look at, consider different viewpoints, and make that informed decision. And I think that's really, the point that you were making at the beginning of your presentation, which is we have these experts, we have the opportunity to get them to frame these things and make these things more accessible and more transparent to the average voter. And so with this, we've actually taken quite a bit of time. But what I want to do is now pass the mic over to James from the Intersect Product Committee, and also a leader for one of the two fiat-backed stablecoin majors that we have on Cardano, and hear his opinion about, as somebody that's focused on Cardano Vision 2030, as somebody that's intimately involved with one of the leading stablecoin projects on Cardano, when you're listening to the viewpoints of all our different experts here on this call, what does that tell you? What kind of opportunities do you see? What kind of challenges did you pick up listening to them?
Yeah, Alex, first off, thanks for actually putting this all together. I know it's a lot of work in order to be able to do this, and I do appreciate the initiative. And then listening to all the panelists here and the amount of work they've put into their processes in order to be able to, one, develop a good understanding of the current fund that they're reviewing, two, the amount of proposals that are currently in it, and then being able to kind of boil down to those who really make sense and that can deliver on their promises. And I really appreciate Nicholas and the amount of time he put into putting that entire review together, along with Matu and what they were doing over there in their engineering department. And then listening to Rodrigo, and then of course Ahmed and what they've developed there, which looks like a really great way to be able to understand the current proposals that are out. And then, of course, what will be best as far as impact goes. And then when it comes really down to it, what Yoram really talked about having to do with enterprise solutions and where we're going. So currently, so just to give a little background, I've been running businesses for over 30 years. And have a little bit of an internal clock having to do with what works and what doesn't. And it just comes, just by intuition these days. I really don't have to think about it anymore, just simply because I've done it so long and survived 3 different Black Swan events and all kinds of different things over my lifespan running a business. So it gives me a little bit of insight where maybe others wouldn't. And then from there, what I'd love to see is that I'd love to see these particular tools like, Alex, what you said, where they could be combined together and be used as an actual tool to inform other independent voters who are not looking to develop this entire process themselves, but then be able to, boil it down to where it is that they find themselves, being able to make informed decisions and making good votes. The one thing I've found is that everybody talked about is team competence. This is something that's extraordinarily important. And then also the relevance of the particular proposal based on the time frame in which it's going to be converted into an actual MVP or something that's actually going to apply to our chain, and whether or not it's even going to meet, the time frame necessary in order to meet the window, right? So when we talk about product market fit, and the timing is extraordinarily important. You could have great technology and miss the window, and you just get lost, and somebody else eats your lunch, So there's always that particular issue that comes into play as well. So I have the unique ability to, or the unique position really is that I've been a part of this community for 6 years. I've worked on Cardano Over Coffee as a co-host for quite some time. People come in every single Catalyst fund and get to actually bring their proposals to the community and speak to them. What I've found is that that's where the human element comes into play. So if we could actually have these processes that other panelists have talked about, along with the human aspect of them actually talking about their particular proposal, you then get the human element that goes along with that, and whether or not, they potentially can bring what they say they're going to bring to fruition. And a lot of that comes from asking questions. So you can read something, you can review it, you can through it through your process engine that you currently have in order to make a good decision surrounding it. But one, you may lose a few along the way that get washed out because your particular engine removes those out of your scope. Two, you don't have the human element and that ability to be able to understand this particular person's view on things, what they wouldn't or couldn't be able to relate in the proposal itself based on what you're reading. And from there, you can get a better idea and actually increase the odds, I think, of actually voting for something that's actually going to impact our ecosystem. So we've been doing this for a long time now. And I've been around since Fund 2, as far as the Catalyst funds go. And the amount of impact that we've had versus the amount of ADA that we've spent is pretty dismal at this point. There are even quite a few in Catalyst. Danny, I'm sure, and Chris would even provide a lot of information having to do with this, is that there are quite a few that were voted through, approved, and could even bring something to market. Either it's because the scope changed, the environment changed, and or somebody else came out with something without a Catalyst funding and beat them to the punch, and then they just dropped off and stopped working on it. So what's important, I think, is that we start to use some of these things that these panelists are coming through with the SMEs, and then from there also have a forum to where everybody that is interested in delivering a pitch, deliver their pitch. If they're uninterested in coming to a public forum and developing or delivering a pitch, I would say they're immediately eliminated from any idea that whether or not I'm going to vote for them or not, simply because they don't have the public ability to be able to actually relate their actual idea or the ability to actually bring it to fruition and bring an MVP from it, right? Or have impact in our ecosystem in some way. And then the other side of that is I think it's important for those of us who have been around for a while and maybe come from right from the beginning that have a great deal of impact at the voting level. It's important in some cases that they recuse themselves from actually voting on particular proposals simply because their influence is in a way biased, simply because of who they're working with, developing enterprise solutions, things of that nature. Like Yoram, for example, him voting for all the things that he's worked with teams on it exudes a little bias. Emergo, same thing. There are teams that they're working with. I appreciate all the work that they're doing and bringing these companies to us to work and get grant funding in order to give us things that will either build better infrastructure, bring new business into us, bring new users into us, what have you. But there are times there where they should not be voting on certain things simply because there's just an inherent bias that comes with it. And we all know this, right? It's just simple logic that comes along with this. So with that in mind, the idea is really to start to look to what's already worked, right? And have interviews with those particular founders that are currently there. So with product committee, we've done a variety of Web 2 and Web 3 interviews. The Web 2 interviews have gone with very large companies that are looking to get into crypto and what their blockers are, what it is they're looking for, what it is they want and don't want. There was one that just simply wanted a solution, out-of-the-box solution. They wanted nothing to do with crypto. They just wanted to be provided a particular software solution that they would use, then to reduce their cost by 20%. And give them better, ability to be able to compete in the market that they're in, right? So it's really interesting to see some of those when you interview some of those people and what they're thinking about from the Web 2 space. And these are multi-million or billion-dollar companies that we had interviews with. Then we had interviews with certain founders that are currently in our space, builders in our space that are currently going through the process of they've already have an MVP or they're in the process of bringing an MVP and what their blockers have been, what they've ran into that's been a problem for them, what they wish they had if they had a magic wand and you could put in one thing that would make their lives better in some way. And then, of course, what their successes are, what they found about Cardano that was extraordinarily awesome when they came here and that was easy to use and that because of that particular thing made their lives even easier bringing an MVP in. So these are all things that I think about when I'm looking at Catalyst proposals and Treasury proposals. And I tend to focus very narrowly on things that give us direct impact now, not in the future, because we're at this point with my internal clock that's ticking, we're running out of time. So when it comes to actually reviewing proposals and looking at things that bring direct impact, I am very limited into what I'm actually focused on. And most of that is having to do with direct DeFi, the Treasury proposal that obviously Elder's bringing out with the stablecoin proposal, adding liquidity into the market. There's, other entities that are thinking about this as a great idea now versus resistance in the beginning. And we're starting to see a move towards a more direct impact versus looking at some of the more nuanced things that we can build and bring to our ecosystem that makes builders' lives better. But it's something that maybe we don't need necessarily right this minute. And it's
James,
not
would you
going to
say
give us direct impact. So sorry, yeah, I'll wrap it up with that. But that's basically where I get a little long-winded with it, but I've thought about this for a long time, obviously.
Thanks,
No,
James.
I actually have a question for you really quickly, if I'm allowed, because one of the things that I think is really the most effective way on how to make actually effective changes with Catalyst is changing the brief or the categories, right? What do we fund? What do we want to allocate funds towards? And I mean, this is the key question, right? If something falls out of the scope, even if it's a great idea that has PMF potentially, we're not doing it, right? So
that's
No,
where
we're not
we run
allowed
into
to.
a little bit, Nicholas, and you know this as well as I. Sometimes there's some great ideas, but sorry, so there's some great ideas, but they get knocked out because it doesn't work with what the funders that have gotten in the past have gotten funding, and so they don't want that to work. So instead, they kind of knock it out, right? And in some cases, they don't even. It's interesting to watch in our community where the inaction or ignoring a particular team or product that they're bringing, and how that is also in essence a no, to their particular idea, right? And we tend to do that here, I've noticed within our space. So they're either trying to do the my precious thing with their funding that they've gotten, and they've consistently gotten. I call it being Cardano-tutionalized. And from there, basically, you just consistently keep getting grant funding, and you become a grant fund person, not an actual somebody that's building something that helps people, right? So
I want to.
That's what NGOs do, James.
Yeah, no, I know.
So on that particular point, I think this is where we're kind of getting to time. But I think one of the key things that comes out of this is here we're only discussing Catalyst proposals, right? And this is limited to 20 million ADA per fund, and it's split across 4 different types of categories, which are purely on the innovation side. And obviously somewhat of a bridge fund, I think, for Fund 14. But now we're seeing Build a DAO, which is essentially grant funding tied explicitly to KPIs beyond just like the reputational layer, which is really, really exciting. You have a more specific pot of funding for open source programs and solutions, as well as their maintenance. And so I think here the value is looking at different sources of funding as well for different specialized things, so we can match maybe time to market, which might not be possible with Catalyst given the current kind of timeline of funds and that cadence. That may change in future. What I think is also really, really interesting, and maybe for this whole idea of like this representative or expert role that we're seeing, that we're trying to surface here, is the pitch, right? James, you mentioned the fact that a level of interaction might be useful, right? And this used to happen in the past with the Catalyst funds, and still currently is possible, where there's a comment period and all these kind of things. But what you see is teams tend to only submit right at the end. And so the ability to interact with the proposer, to clarify things with the proposer, and to humanize that relationship doesn't exist anymore, right? Whereas we saw quite a bit of back and forth between proposing teams and voters within Build a DAO, and that led to higher quality proposals posted in the end. I would also, and there the expertise is the builders of dApps are speaking to the other builders of dApps and telling them how to improve their proposal. So I think this is a very kind of narrow niche and quality expert to expert in a very specific theme. And then you have maybe the largest learning where this could bring value, which is on the DRep side of stuff, in broad Cardano governance, where we have the opportunity for discussion between a proposer or proposing team for governance action and delegate representatives and voters. Even though the info action gets a lot of hate, it does enable, within a time-bound era, to have, these discussions at the maximum of a month until this interaction kind of fades or doesn't fade. So I see the value there, and I really do believe that having that interaction is critical. because things can't be just set up offline beforehand. And then finding a way to bring that expertise into conversations where, we've seen proposing teams being challenged for the competence of whatever co-proposers or committee members they might have on a governance action, where DReps may or may not have the full expertise set and may need to reach out to specific people or just kind of take a signal from somewhere else that, okay, this might make sense. So just given that we have a very short bit of time, I just want to answer one question which actually kind of wraps this up quite nicely. And this is a question from Cardano Wiki, which is, can you tell us a bit more about the Catalyst Rep pilot? And is it the idea that some of today's panel members should transition into this role? So, Cardano Wiki, the idea behind this is to surface community expertise, and these are experts in very specific fields that exist within the community, whether they are employed by Intersect, Cardano Foundation, IOG, Emergo, and the hundreds of different startups and scale-ups that exist in the Cardano ecosystem. That is the idea here, that they can provide an easier access to expert analysis to voters currently on Catalyst, and hopefully beyond that, so that the quality of decision-making for the average voter on Cardano is higher because their access to quality information and expert information is easier. There will be a second roundtable of this kind, which will be scheduled shortly, and this will be targeted for the Asia Pacific time zone. Here, right now, we're covering more of the Americas, and we hope to feature more diverse set, new thematics. What we had today was expertise from DeFi and product, with James joining us from the Intersect Product Committee. We had Yoram and Ahmed from Alks Connect and Emergo Labs, each looking at sharing their expertise on enterprise adoption, as well as Web 2 to Web 3 onboarding. We had Nico Cerny and Rodrigo looking at the kind of macro and micro of governance and distributed decision-making on Cardano and Catalyst specifically. And then we also had Mathieu coming in from an open source infrastructure and tooling lens. All had very different approaches of how to review over 500 proposals each or something like that, and making sense of them for you. They all had different approaches of manual approaches or use of AI. But one of the key themes, or some of the key themes that I've identified in this conversation and I think are valuable, is the credibility of a team to deliver, its past track record, and its current kind of predicted track record seem to be one of the biggest barriers to entry into Catalyst, not only for the voters, but clearly for some of the expert reviewers that we have on today's panel. So with this, I will ask each and every single one of you for a quick, maximum 30-second final note, and I'll kickstart with Ahmed.
Oh, well, of course. I think this is, thank you really for putting this together. I think this is a really great initiative. I think we need way more of this. As you were talking and as James was talking about, the humanizing aspect of it, YC came to mind. The Treasury unlocking situation that took the last couple of months also came to mind, where everybody was given a stage to present their findings and an opportunity to defend what they were asking for. And that really, made the process much more enjoyable and humanized, as James said. So let's find a way to make that happen. I fully support that. Okay, let's humanize this process instead of just having text and LLMs. Awesome. Yoram, over to you. And then in terms of order, just so that we can get this, Nico, Rodrigo, and then James to wrap it up.
Yeah, same here. I think so. About a year ago, there was few mentors in the ecosystem, in the Catalyst ecosystem, that kind of we worked on how to improve Catalyst. And one of the ideas was to create a mentorship process before applying to Catalyst, right? And again, humanized process. And I think in the forum article that I wrote, there is a link to this small evaluation that we did in recommendation. And I think that would be very important, like to make sure also, for newcomers and for people already presenting, make sure the proposals are in line with what is expected from the next round as defined. Help them make sure that we are not onboarding just people, that are coming for a quick buck and that we can support. So I think this process can be very important. It will make the process post kind of Catalyst, like the reviewer process, much more efficient and better, and then obviously the voting process much better and improve the quality. And through that, we'll understand. Again, so humanizing, but before actually the proposal process. That's would be my recommendation to consider.
Awesome. Thanks, Yoram. Nico, over to you.
Yeah, really, really quick call to action. Go vote. Make sure that you participate in the decision-making process. If you're an ADA holder and you have registered to vote, do that. And then also I need to give a shout out also to the Catalyst team who have introduced, I think actually on Friday, a new proposal submission and accountability policy, which was long overdue, I think, but kudos where kudos is due. So yeah, really excited for Fund 14 voting and also the future funds.
Awesome. Thank you, Nico. Rodrigo, over to you. You are muted.
Okay, I think I can speak now. So the main learning from this meeting, I think, is the necessity to maintain this type of work. I think this initiative created by Cardano Foundation is essential to pave the way for representatives, creating a new incentive structure. And this is essential to improve decision-making on Catalyst, because some problems identified since Fund 2 of Project Catalyst are not solved until now. And I see representatives as the better solution that we had at the moment. So I'm thrilled to participate in this initiative, and I think we should continue with this in the next funds.
Awesome. Thank you, Rodrigo. Mathieu.
Yeah, I'd say first, thanks for Catalyst, because it's been like a great thing for the whole Cardano ecosystem. So many teams relying on it, and so many projects that were created thanks to it. And also, I wish that we in the future we have more accountability. So accountability for project funded, and accountability for representative, because if we are going to have representative, they need to be accountable to what they say. And that goes with the tracking that Nicolas was mentioning before, tracking our decisions, tracking our results. And because if we have more data, we will get better decisions. And that's the scientific part of me that says that more data, more accountability. Yeah.
Awesome, Mathieu. Thank you so much. James, to wrap it up.
I love the fact that we can all come together no matter where we come from, no matter our educational level, and we level each other up in the process. It all comes from experience and the ability to make really good decisions based on consensus, which means that it's for the community, right? And at that point, the other part about it is that Ahmed said, and others, and I've said, humanizing is extraordinarily important, which then puts a face to the actual people that are behind all of these different teams, founded entities, projects that are currently building right now. And I believe that the processes that we're currently developing with the SMEs, which I applaud Alex and the initiative here and what he's doing, and how that will evolve and develop into something to where we will literally level up everybody coming into the community for the first time in how to have an educated understanding of these proposers, the projects, and of course the SMEs that are actually giving them some of this guidance, right? So it's absolutely amazing. So absolutely love this space, and it got my wheels turning as the next processes on how to make it even better. So thanks, man.
Awesome. Thank you, James. And thank you to each one of our speakers that took the time to join us today. And of course, our fantastic audience that tuned in to listen in, and hopefully will take this call to action, will go out and vote. And what we are looking forward to is the next roundtable on this particular topic in a very short period of time. In the meantime, make sure you go and take a look at the Cardano Forum and search the tag catalyst-rep-pilot and to find out more about what each one of the experts here today has cooked up for you as an ADA voter. This is everything from enterprise adoption all the way to open source tools and infrastructure, and then the macro and micro level of decentralized governed and distributed governance. So thank you all. Have a wonderful week. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks, everyone. Ciao.